This year I had the opportunity to film my first proper music video. And while it was an amazing experience, as every project goes, it presented the opportunity to learn and improve before the next time. If you haven't already seen the music video, I'll leave a link to it down below, as well as a short behind the scenes. But for now, let's delve into what I learned and how you can use it to improve on your next projects. I'm Matt, and this is Q Time. To begin, lesson number 1 is being organized. Nothing beats having a solid plan when it comes to shooting any kind of video or film. Prior to shooting, Josh and I spent months conferring, getting the story down, planning locations, and making sure once we got to those locations, we'd have enough time for everything. Now these aren't minute by minute plans, they never are, but you also need to know roughly how long everything is going to take. You also need to plan to be flexible, because when you're shooting, things are bound to go wrong. But it's not just about planning before, it's also about planning during as well. Immediately upon arriving at the cabin location, we realized the spa was way too small for a scene we were originally planning. And as a result, we had to quickly adjust and change how we're going to tackle that part of the video. We also went for a location scout on day 1, and once we had the locations down, I made sure to mark them and used an app called Sunseeker to understand where the sun would be at different points during the day. This allowed us to plan the shooting schedule around the best available light and proved a highly valuable resource. I also used an app called Mark II Artist Viewfinder, an app I've talked about on the show before, to photograph the locations and understand the coverage that each lens would provide on my camera that I was using. Lastly, for tip number 1, you're not always going to be right. We had a couple of scenes in the video that either didn't turn out the way we planned, or we needed to shoot additional footage sometime later. In those cases, it was all about evaluating what could be done and then convincing the people I was working with what the right decision to proceed with was. In this case, getting additional footage really helped the overall project, so it was worthwhile doing. Tip number 2 is having the right gear for the project, and this doesn't always mean objectively having the best gear. Given our budget, we didn't have the opportunity to rent cameras such as an ARRI or a RED, or to use anamorphic lenses. We knew we wanted to shoot at 50 frames per second and slow that down to half speed in some shots, so we needed a camera that could do that. Despite the fact I was thinking of investing in a Sony a7 III at the time, it turns out the quality in 1080p, where it can shoot 50 frames per second, is actually worse than my Sony a7S Mark I, and this is mainly due to the fact the camera is designed as a 4K camera. Therefore, we rigged up the a7S with some Rokinon Cine Primes and an Atomos Ninja recorder to get the job done. This is a lesson I've been learning a lot over my film journey, mainly because you can have all the gear in the world, but as the gear gets more expansive and complicated, you need more people to manage it. Seeing as our crew was so small and was mainly just me shooting, you really need a good kind of kit that works for that type of gig. There's no point having a truck full of lighting if you're going to be working on your own, because chances are you won't be able to use half of it in the time constraints you'll be working with. Therefore, I think it's really important to use tip number 1 in conjunction with organizing a really good kit of gear that's right for the project. If you're not quite sure what gear you're going to need, try doing a test shoot first in the location to gauge it, and worst case, do pack a little more just in case items like we did. In our music video, story trumped stylistic shots, so gear wasn't as important as something like location. Whereas if your music video revolves around things like crazy lighting setups, lens flares, or sweeping camera movements, you might require more specialized setups. And this just goes to illustrate that the type of gear will differ depending on the type of music video you're doing. It's not one size fits all. Lastly, tip number 3 is seeking feedback. Now, once we finished the music video, we showed it to as many people as possible, mainly to get that exposure, but also to hear people's thoughts as well. And while it's nice when people enjoy something and give you very general feedback, it's even better when someone close to you offers some constructive criticism. In this video, one of the best pieces of advice we were given was about how we portray the two characters, who were supposed to be alternate versions of each other. Someone had the single advice of making this more clear through the use of the characters wearing the same or similar clothing, which is something we hadn't considered at the time. And while I don't agree that they should have been wearing the same clothes as to not basically spoon feed the audience and instead open it up to interpretation, it's always good to be aware of your choices because it helps to create better work when the decision is purposeful rather than an afterthought. And while we did our best to consider everything possible in the short amount of time we had, there's always room for improvement. And seeking that feedback from friends and family can be a good way to ensure that next time you think twice before deciding on something as simple as wardrobe, and help you get better at your craft as well. And those are just a few of the things I've learned shooting this music video. Hopefully they help some of you out, but most importantly, go out and keep shooting. It's the best and only way to gain proficiency at something. And let me know about your next music video in the comments section below. There's also more Q Time coming, so make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you next time.